3, 2,
2,
1.
Hello, welcome back to Aetheral Space 12.15 Moonfall. We are back.
Yeah, last time on Aetheral Space, Bruno and Serena, I believe, as the ventriloquist, had been hired by a mysterious company to collect scrap.
I was like, wait, what?
No, that's a dumb joke about this game we've been playing, Lethal Company. I have some tragic Aetheral Space news. I think everyone who follows Aetheral Space already saw my sad rant, but my Musashi doll got thrown away. I had to go to the doctor in the morning on, I think it was Thursday it happened, so I wasn't there when I normally am, and the trash guy must have bumped it, because it was there the day before in the same place, and it got thrown away, and I tore through the dumpster as much as I could, ripping open bags, running around all the garbage. I couldn't find them. Wendigo, generously, in all their kindness, has offered to make another one, but I have let down Musashi. Not even his biggest fan could avoid letting him down. Truly, he is the biggest
I
sufferer.
showed my back once again.
His back is covered in wounds, and it's not because he's a coward. He has no choice. I'm so sorry, Musashi. Rest in peace, original doll. But, yeah. Let's read about the real Musashi, shall we? Who exists in real life.
The Tulpa.
My Tulpa. Toy Musashi I've created. A toy Musashi, clad in armor of light, watched his good work conclude. Without a single drop of blood, King's top and bottom half went flying off in separate directions. Presumably plural. Flipping through the air, seemingly helpless. I see, mused King. So that is what your sword tastes like. A toy Musashi. Until they snapped back together. Kicking off the rooftop, King lunged at Musashi once more with a metal fist, and Musashi twisted his body to dodge it with Radiant Horizon. That's where the thrusters are all over him, right?
Yeah, it should be blocked there.
What does Silver Ratio do again?
Silver Ratio disassembles things. It breaks the connection between them.
Thank you. Even if Silver Ratio reduced the individual efficacy of each Radiant, packing them together like this would compensate for the difference. That's true, they can only separate so much when they're all right next to each other. Even if the fist collided with the countless blades that covered Musashi's arm, and then, as each and every Radiant flicked out of existence, that fist kept going. It smashed into Musashi's forearm, shattering the bone, and sent him flying up into the sky, his arm flapping uselessly in the wind. Musashi frantically ignited more thrusters in an effort to stop his flight, to steady himself, and he quickly succeeded. He was skilled, after all. But that didn't mean it wasn't too late. As Musashi stopped in the sky, King appeared before him, the product of insane speed, arms raised up as if to spike a volleyball. His fists, however, were missing. No, Musashi's eyes flicked upwards. He could see them. He could see King's fist. Is he doing like the robot rocket fist? They were up even higher. Severed and, in my defense, it hasn't been written yet. They were up even higher. Severed and thrown with great force. Tiny dots in the sky above. What on earth? A toy Musashi did not know this, but it was possible for a fusion tool to have an ability outside of the innate capacity to combine with its user. Zarathustra was one such fusion tool. King's ability, Silver Ratio, allowed him to destroy the connections between objects. By destroying the connection between Musashi and his Radiants, King had now learned that he could disable them as easily as flicking a switch. That was how he'd easily overcome Radiant Horizon. Zarathustra's ability was to repair any connection that Silver Ratio had destroyed. Once King combined with it, he could command that technique as if it were his own. It wasn't that Musashi had cut him in half. King had destroyed the connection in his own torso with Silver Ratio, allowed Musashi to fly through the gap between his top and bottom halves, and analyzed the structure of his radiance as they passed through. Oh, he's like that Metal Gear Revengeance film.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Then he had simply used Zarathustra to repair himself. Now a similar phenomenon was taking place. He ate the chop-chop fruit! King had destroyed the connection between his hands and arms, flinging the manipulators up into the sky. With Zarathustra, he was once again repairing those connections, and those fists were zooming back down, building up momentum as they went. At the very instant they snapped back into place, King slammed them downwards, right into Toy Musashi's chest. He did not have time to take even a single breath. It was like a meteor falling to the earth. To an outside observer, Musashi became a ray of white light, a sonic boom pounding out as he crashed directly into the great cathedral at Pangloss's heart. A great geyser of debris, stone and glass, flew up, the remnants of the cathedral's west wing, demolished utterly by the introduction of a toy Musashi. Very few people in the galaxy could have survived such a blow. Luckily, Hatoy Musashi was one of them. But that was all the luck he was getting. He lay there, body screaming in pain at the center of the cathedral. All the religious music's playing as like the moonlight filters in. Broken stained glass had sliced at his skin, and shattered stone had battered his body. He knew without checking that now he'd broken far more than just his arm. When he breathed, it didn't feel right at all. Oh my god, crumpled lungs. All around him, looking down, were statues of the 7 spearmen, the bringers of the apocalypse in Superbian scripture. I can hear your keyboard.
I'm up typing, so I don't know what you're hearing.
What is that noise, then? It's like something's rolling around? Or tapping? Interesting. How appropriate. With the parts of his body he still had confidence in, Musashi began picking himself up. Thump! When he was interrupted by the sound of someone landing behind him. Slowly, he turned his head. Still alive? You do yourself credit. In the broken window, silhouetted by the flashing red lightning of the growing storm, stood King. In sheer contrast to Musashi, he bore not a single scratch on his body. Alarm rose to the forefront of the full moon's brain. Now that he thought about it, had he managed to land a single blow against this man? Anxiety he hadn't felt in a long time crawled through Musashi's lungs. He'd considered this man a particularly strong mercenary, but what he'd seen so far went far beyond that. When he looked at King now, he got the same feeling he'd got when he'd seen the contenders. Not just from his strength, but from the way he stood, carried himself. Musashi's bleeding hand curled around a jagged blade of broken glass. Just who was this man? The Shisha, the very center of the universe. Supremacy Space. 100 years ago. Levis?
Yeah.
Levis bowed low, hair brushing against the floor, as the man as good as God elevated him. At the edge of his vision, Levis saw it, a golden sort of light. First, it tapped this isn't Cadman Supreme, right? This isn't Cadman Supreme, right? 100 years ago?
Who's Cadman?
The Supreme that Skipper killed?
No.
Okay, this is the one before, presumably, or maybe the one before that. At the edge of his vision, Levis saw it, a golden sword of light. First, it taps against his right shoulder.
Sorry, that's a bit weird. I went, who's Cadman?
Yeah, it's like...
I pronounced it Cadmon, so that's why.
Oh, Cadmon. Like a Digimon.
Yeah.
Cadmon Digivolve to Supreme!
Epoch Xmon.
It barely even qualified as contact, but Levis could feel the power flowing into him. Strands of... Oh, this is Gale the Golden. Wait, he's only 100 years ago?
Yeah, he was the one before Henry the Glutton.
Oh, fuck. Damn, how did Gale die? But Levis could feel the power flowing into him, strands of gold peeling off the blade and winding into his body. Even his breathing seemed to grow stronger as he kneeled there. Levis. He had no surname, no family to give him one, nor any interest in claiming one. The boy of 14 had already decided he would be known only by his deeds. He'd been carrying them out as a wanderer, righting wrongs where he found them, names and titles where unnecessary. He would accept only this one, granted by the Supreme himself. Levis of the Purity looked up as the ceremony concluded, the Supreme retracting the hero light as he took a step back. The Supreme was a tall and stoic man, golden... Ooh, he also has gold aether like Cadmon, though. What, is there something to that? Does being Supreme innately give you gold aether?
No.
Destined? Chosen, even? Oh, what was Henry the Glutton's aether color?
Red.
Ah. Golden aether crawling through his long dark hair and glinting behind his cogitant blue eyes. The plate armor he wore was just as radiant as his aether, and it glowed, bright enough that the massive halls of the Shisha were enveloped in light wherever he went. This is, I assume, King, right?
Well, it wouldn't sound the same now.
That's it? Levis asked, looking up at the Supreme. The Supreme raised an amused eyebrow as he returned to his throne. You expected more? He asked. Chuckles sounded out from some of his comrades in attendance. Levis looked back down at the floor, face quickly turning red. He'd forgotten his place already, a bad habit. To talk back to the Supreme? I don't like ceremony, the Supreme said honestly. Even this is a little too much for me. He held out a finger from his gauntlet and allowed a mirefly to land there. The insect shook the moisture from its wings, clicking in contentment. Oh, beloved! This throne room was cultivated like a garden. He's so good with animals. This throne room was cultivated like a garden, teeming with life even when it would become inconvenient. Indeed, more than a few of the mirefly's fellows buzzed around Levis's sweat-soaked hair as he knelt down. The Supreme continued. The thing that matters to me is the action actually taken, not how you dress it up or justify it. I don't care if a person's saved by carrying them out of a fire, or pulling them out of the water, or stopping the person trying to kill them. All I care about is that the person's saved. It was strange. When Levis had been told the Supreme had wanted to meet him, had wanted to reward him for his heroic deeds, he'd expected a more intimidating man. A man of stone, to be sure. But he seemed bizarrely ordinary. His voice wavered as he talked, as if he wasn't fully confident in the words he was saying. Even that golden armor of his seemed to be just a little too big on him. You'd think him a fraud, if not for the resolve in his eyes. You are Levis of the Purity now, the Supreme said firmly. That is the result I am interested in. Oh, he's one of the heavenly virtues?
The Heroes of Form, they were called, yeah.
Oh, the Heroes of the what?
Heroes of Form.
Ooh. That is the result I am interested in. The Purity will grant you complete immunity from all attacks that target the inside of your body. It's a hallowed temple. Your other abilities will, of course, experience a significant boost as well. That is the contract we three have made. You, I, and the Hero Light. Oh my god, it's like a magical girl item. The light shifted over the Supreme's face and he smiled softly. In exchange, show me great things, Levis. I expect it from you. Ooh. Okay. So if someone had tried to do like a heartbeat shotgun in his throat, it would have done nothing.
Well, there's ones that specifically target the inside, so poisons and stuff like that are completely immune.
Oh. Does he still have that power even though Gale's dead?
Perhaps we'll see.
Because the Hero Light exists, maybe. Oh, shit. Oh, I bet that's an armament. Oh, fuck! I wonder if Darkstar's using that, do you think? Oh, man, I'm theory crafting. I have to read the fucking chapter, sorry. When Levis had been called to join the Supreme's Heroes of Form, the 16 warriors dedicated to upholding truth and justice within the supremacy, even he had his doubts. He'd heard talk of their virtue, their mighty deeds, their strength of character. I'm realizing now, between the Heroes of Form and the Contenders, does, like, each Supreme have their own, like, fucking version of, like, these are my top guys?
Usually, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And do any of them hold over after that Supreme's death?
Sometimes they do, but usually not. Usually they bring in their own guys.
This is so sad. But a tiny part of him had always resisted believing it. Such people couldn't exist, surely. Their universe wasn't one that permitted such unrepentant goodness. But he was proven wrong, and wrong, and wrong, and wrong! On Eliasa, he joined forces with Jail of the Stoicity, and saved a colony from a horde of walking churches. Ooh, that's from, Downpour!
Yeah.
Hell yeah. On Wergio, he worked with the famous twins, Gala of the Ferocity and Pippa of the Fidelity, to evacuate citizens before a meteor strike. On Murpharin, he and Shinji of the Necessity cut down countless pirates and rescued the captives they had taken. Again and again and again they corrected wrongs. In time this would come to be known as the Golden Age of the Supremacy. But the Supreme himself would never accept that. His work was never done. So long as someone out there is suffering, he once said wistfully, looking over the remnants of the battlefield, our world is far from golden. And with those words, even Levis had been forced to admit, such people did exist. What does he mean by such people?
Heroes.
Oh, I see. I don't know what's happening with your mic, but I keep hearing like background sounds and bursts.
I'm
I don't know what's
it's
going
fireworks.
on.
I'm afraid that I cannot do anything about that.
Oh, it just sounds like room static to me. Interesting. The Shisha was alive with the sound of screaming. Levis sprinted down the hallway, sweat pouring down his face, the usually brightly lit environment now dark and foreboding. Sweat was not the only thing he'd been covered with. Blood, vivid and crimson, coated one side of his body. It had belonged to Pippa. Loyal Pippa, dutiful Pippa. She had tried to save her Supreme, and the fruits of her effort now stung at Levis's nose and crawled across his tongue. Incoherent, targetless sobs poured from Levis's throat as he ran. Childishness, he thought. He'd abandoned rearing its head once again. At least she had tried. Coward, 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 coward! The words he told himself seemed to bounce off the walls, whispered by unseen judges in the dark. His arms hurt, his legs hurt. How dare he complain of pain? At least he was alive. At least he hadn't been eaten. The images flashed through his mind over and over again. That man breaking into the throne room, his face like a toad, his pupils black as night, his bloody teeth spread out into an ecstatic grin. The Supreme rising to face him, the Supreme falling, the Supreme being eaten, devoured, torn limb from limb. The warped Supreme floating behind his new master, awakened and brought to heel, shining with an eerie red light. His flayed form wrapped in chains, his blinded eyes stabbed by light, his twisted body writhing. Oh my god. I'm just imagining, did you ever read Berserk when, like, Griffith's been tortured?
Yeah.
And he's, oh no, Gale! They did him like that. He's got the helmet and everything. And then the running. He had to get away. He had to help. He had to get away. He had to help. He didn't know what to do. He wanted to live. Could he live? Was it even acceptable for him to live? When he'd run past so many corpses, his comrades, his friends, half-eaten and thrown away? Was it alright for him to even keep breathing? The tears stung in his eyes to such a degree that he didn't even notice the woman until she planted a hand on his shoulder. Screaming, he whirled around, slipping on blood, collapsing to the floor, holding his hands up in a vain attempt to protect his face. Slowly, when no killing blow came, he peeked out from between his fingers. Yerha of the Authority was out of breath as well, hands on her knees, her face a bright red. The older woman ran a hand over her shaved head as she stood up, supporting herself against the wall. She was covered in blood as well, and not all of it belonged to other people. She'd been hit. "You always were fast," she rasped, blinking rapidly. "Did anyone else get away?" Levis shook his head, his throat aching with held-back tears. "No," he whispered. Everyone else who was in the throne room, I think they're dead." "Who was that? Who is that person?" The demon who'd torn down the Golden Age, the cannibal who'd torn the hero apart, the monster who'd devoured Levis's life. "I guess that's the new Supreme," Yerha said bitterly, slumping down to the ground. Levis shook his head, rising to his feet on trembling legs. "No!" he said. "No! We can get away! We can put together a plan! Think of something! Take him out! Avenge everyone!" Yerha seemed to consider it for a moment, but then she took her hand away from her stomach, stared at the blood dripping from between her fingers, and smiled ruefully. "I don't think that's happening, kid," she said. "Besides, getting away is easier said than done." "What do you mean?" Levis asked, trembling. "That glutton's ability," Yerha sighed, her breath heavy and bled. "I don't know the particulars, but it looks like he gains control over the aether of those he eats. He ate the Supreme, right?" Levis's eyes widened. "Right." His voice trailed off. He'd already followed the train of thought to its awful, final station. Yerha nodded. "He's got the hero's light, then. We're all connected to the Supreme through it. There's no shortage of nasty things he could do to us with that connection." "But," Levis grasped at straws, "if he could do that, we'd be dead already." "Only because he thinks he might get the chance to eat us, too, if he lets us run around. As soon as he figures that ain't happening, he'll get rid of us straight away." But... Levis paced back and forth, hands clawing at the air desperately. "There has to be something we can do." That sad smile returned to Yerha's pale lips, and she turned her head towards the ground. "There is, kid," she mumbled. "And that's why I'm sorry." "Huh?" There was a moment of silence, and in that moment Yerha suddenly glanced up at Levis, her eyes flaring a psychedelic purple. Immediately he felt the pool of her ability, the authority, mental order she could give to those beneath her in a chain of command. "Draw your sword!" Levis was powerless to resist. By the time the idea of resistance occurred, the blade was already in his hand. It was like an alien blade, moving independently of his will. "Yerha!" he cried, looking at the treacherous sword. "What are you doing?" "The only way to break your connection to the hero light," Yerha whispered, very nearly gone, "is to make you incompatible with it." "I'm sorry." Levis knew what would happen next. He opened his mouth even though he knew it would be useless. He spoke even though he knew it would be pointless. He screamed even though he knew it would be worthless. Stop! Kill me! Purity was the twin of innocence, and as that sword plunged into Yurha's stomach, held by Levis's unwilling hands, they died together. No! Fuck! That's sad! Oh, what do you even do after that? How do you recover? I guess you don't. I guess you just kill Musashi 100 years later. God! What the fuck? I thought my backstories were sad. That's so fucked! Is anyone ever happy in Aetheral Space?
For a little while.
At any point? for brief moments, glimpses.
Before the other shoe drops, you're pretty happy.
Fuck! That's heavy. Wow, that's heavy. Ocean hate. Floating the city of Pangloss. Abandoned. Supremacy state. Present day. Popcorn.
Okay, hold on. We might want to pause recording for a second because food is on the... No, it should be fine actually, I'll keep going.
How dare you!
Musazi's eyes narrowed. It didn't matter who this man was. Where his skill and power had come from was irrelevant. All that mattered was that he was aligned against Musashi. All that mattered was that he was Musazi's enemy. Back on Elysian Fields, he decided that he'd never show his back again. That resolve hadn't changed. White aether flowed out through Musashi's hands into the firm floor below, and from there it ran into the looming statue of the spearmen. As one, their stone spears burst upwards, propelled by thrusters, dust spilling from the statue's now empty hands. Like rockets, they zoomed upwards towards the shattered roof, beams of light blazing from the base of each weapon. No doubt King understood that Musashi was enacting some plan. He chose not to engage with it, lunging instead at Musashi directly, seeking to eliminate the source of the attack before the results could make themselves known. His wooden figures cracked in the air as he bore them, ready to gouge at flesh. Too slow. If there was one attribute Musashi knew he was unmatched in, it would be his speed. With another blast of white, Musashi too was launched upward. With speed and force, it left caution to the wind. King was Musashi's natural enemy. That much was clear now. With a single touch, he could dispel any of Musashi's thrusters. Radiance would therefore be completely useless, no matter what form they took. However, King couldn't cancel out the momentum the thrusters had already created. 3 spears zooming in from above. A 4th manoeuvred through the confessional, seeking to impale King's side. The 5th looped around the outside of the church, re-entering through a shattered window and lancing at King's shoulder. The 6th speared 4th head-on, occupying King's immediate attention. 6 deadly blows closing in from 6 different directions. Even so, Musashi had no doubt that King would dodge them. He'd already proven that he was capable of such a feat. That was why each and every one of those 6 spears was nothing but a distraction. The distraction for the 7th, clutched in Musashi's own hand. While the spears crashed inwards, throwing up dust from their movements, Musashi weaved through the chaos, appearing right to the side of King as he raised his fist to deflect the first weapon. It was a perfect opening. Even with that fusion tool body of his, being impaled would surely be debilitating. Musashi threw the spear forward and a white bird flew in front of him. 5, 50, either?
Yep.
Okay, and resume.
Nice. And remember, the times will be slightly off after you cut the 1, 2, 3 at the beginning.
Musashi thrust the spear forward and a white bird flew in front of him. It was King's bird, the parakeet that he'd sent away at the start of the fight. It had surely shown up now because King was in danger. It was no ordinary bird, it was on King's side. It had appeared because it somehow had the ability to assist King, so there was no reason to hesitate. Strategically, there was no reason at all to hesitate. I'm going to stir. Sorry. The toy Musashi knew all that. It crossed his mind in an instant. But his eyes saw something uninvolved in this fight appear, and his hands, the bird tweeted and read A for Spart, hesitated. King's fist slammed into Musashi's jaw. The attack was incomprehensible. The bird had let out that shrill sound. King had thrust his arm forward towards the flying spears, and Musashi had been hit. A tear in space opening between King's fist and Musashi's face. A wormhole ability, but not King's. It wasn't his Aether after all.
Parakeets, aren't they one of the animals able to recognize themselves in mirrors? He has a consciousness. Activating wormhole ability!
As the crimson Aether sparked around the parakeet once again, more wormholes opened, deflecting each and every one of the spears before they could reach King. He jabbed
Do you imagine you piss off like one crow and then a murder of crows with Aether come back on you, descending?
He jabbed his fist forward again into empty space, and again it struck Musashi. The wood of it slammed into the swordsman's stomach, doubling him over and forcing bile from his throat. King's voice was cold as the bird landed on his shoulder. Can I put on his last little speech to you?
Sure. Courtesy of the absurd weapons lab. Another punch. Musashi went flying backwards. Did you think you'd become ruthless, a toy Musashi? A kick from empty space, striking Musashi in the side and striking him into the ground. Did you believe yourself cold because you bent the rules a tad? Did you think you'd abandoned that pride? You just passed up the easiest of victories for the sake of that pride. Don't make me laugh. Another punch. Musashi went down hard as an unforeseeable fist cracked into the top of his skull. Just because you became the tiniest bit more tarnished, King snarled, seizing Musashi by the collar and tossing him across the cathedral. You thought yourself blackened! Then why not throw away those ideals of yours? Because you still thought yourself a hero! Didn't you, a toy Musashi? Musashi lay there in a heap, his breathing ragged, his body blood-soaked. And the king stood over him. It's fucked up. In order to gain power, there's like this moral that you have to be evil, but then when you have the power, you're evil now. No. Despite his lack of facial features, fury radiated from the old man. He flipped the spear he now held in his hand, pointing it down at his prone opponent. The next words he said were soft, barely audible, amidst the storm crashing down on the cathedral. Don't you realize, he said, that such people never existed? Without another word, he thrust the spear down, and the stone blade, bolstered by Aether, pierced Musashi's stomach like a knife through butter. Strength had abandoned the swordsman. He could do nothing but widen his eyes. He could do nothing but gasp in pain. He could do nothing but lie there, as his heartbeat came to a sudden and ignoble end. Wow. There's a running theme of, like, how different Aetheral Space would be if people just had cognitive behavioral therapy. It's just like the first time something bad happens to them, they had someone there to work them through it. Oh man, though, that's rough. Ah, fuck. You know, thinking about this and like death and war and all this, I did actually have an idea. I'm almost sure you already thought of this and it already exists, but I was thinking based on like 1,000 revolutions or any real major war where like, you know, because we have a galaxy with like hundreds of trillions of maybe even more people.
Yeah.
I was imagining like there's like a whole world's, or at least like a planet that's just the entire planet is a graveyard.
Oh yeah,
and you just like you just go there and that's where they had to store all the bodies. That like there wasn't enough room. And that made me really sad. And I was just thinking about like Dragon going there to visit Skipper in an unnamed grave. Oh man. Anyway, fun fact time!
Yeah, fun facts. Look, give me an Aetheral question. Let's have a look.
We need something very not depressing to turn things around. Let me see if there's anything in the thread. Let's see. Aetheral Space. Oh, shit! Okay. So, there's a couple good ones from JT. First, meta question. What is your favorite part of AS for you, Tan and Darnell? Do you want to go first, or should I?
I enjoy the unique abilities and unique characters, and I feel like the setting that I've got here, it lets me do a lot of crazy stuff without having to reconcile it too much.
I'm basically of the same mind, but in case you meant from the story, JT, it's really tough to choose. I really liked the moment Marie and Musashi had in Arc 6. I really liked Musashi's like, no, I'm a toy Musashi in Arc 10. But I think the best moment has to be Dragon in Arc 11 in the Star chapter, when he's like going through everything, and it's like he shot past a toy Musashi. I forgot the exact line, but it was so fucking hard. That was the moment I was like, oh my god, peak fiction. That was really good.
Say the same as Dragon and not Musashi.
What about you story wise? What do you think's the best part so far you've written?
I like Star. I think is one of my favorite parts I've written as well.
It's so good. It's so inspired.
Like on a purely like action level, I really enjoyed writing Supreme versus Skipper.
That was fun.
That had a lot of inspiration. I don't know if you noticed from like, this is JJK spoilers. Recently, the big fight.
Yeah, the big fight.
Yeah.
Although when you wrote it, that was before that happened.
It had just started like a bit into the fight, and that's probably where the inspiration came in. It's like when they went all crazy and technical with Aether usage for a little bit.
There's this thing with a lot of artists and writers, and I get it too, where like a lot of times I like to compare something to something I see elsewhere, and I know that can come across, and I don't mean it to, where it's like, oh, you just took this, but I think Tan and I are on a wavelength where he knows that's not what I mean. Like, I get excited. I can see the inspiration. I love how you make things your own and do it. And I feel like that fight was, like, the pinnacle of every fucking anime, manga, like, battle IQ-ass fight.
Yeah,
where
that's
it's,
what I was
just
going for.
so good. Because it was, like, every time Skipper's like, but wait, another trick. And every time the Supreme's like, by the way, I've just fucking reconstructed my lungs with Earth. And now can make a noise. That was the coolest thing. People were losing it over that. It was so good. And that's the thing, too, right? That's why I think you and Sobek are such crazy writers. Because I've also consumed a lot of the same media as you. I don't think I could write something that awesome, where it's like that creative without it feeling insane to me. Oh, it was so good. That was hype. And I can definitely say the fights have improved over time in AS, right? Because, like, early on, I don't think any of your fights have ever really been bad. You're really good at writing action, and it flows, but, sometimes it goes a little long, or sometimes I'm looking for more dialogue or plot. But I think as time goes on, you've managed to meld the character development with the fights in a way where, like, as they're progressing and gaining new abilities and learning to think better, it also feels like they're growing as characters, and they're having these internal realizations, and they're flashing back, and they're overcoming parts of their trauma or things that they're sort of are inconsistent in their minds. And it makes it, it makes it so gripping, and I think you really capture that kind of shonen essence in a way that even a lot of shonen manga I don't think do. And it's so good. And, like, oh my god, like, I know Teeth is working on a comic. If this had, like, a visual representation, the Aetheral Space fights by Mappa would go crazy. Can you imagine? Oh my god. Anyway, that's enough sucking your cock for, like, the next year.
Supreme versus Skipper and everything exploding into cubes.
Yeah, that's what they save all the budget for that. The episode before is like all this shitty like smear frames of Dragon's face in the background.
Off-model Abaddon shows up.
Yeah. Then all of a sudden it's like sick 3D with like shadows and shading, and the music's playing. It's like fucking licensed music. Rules of nature. Oh my god. God, look at me. I'm nerding out like a dork about the idea of anime Aetheral Space. I want it more than anything. I don't even know what the path to that is with a fucking Western web serial. I don't know if you have to make a book or a comic or if you have to just be rich or who you got to talk to, but it needs to happen. That's like my life stream. Like, people have dreams, right?
Yeah.
People are like, I want to do this, yada, yada, yada. My dream right now, and it's not even my thing, is to see Aetheral Space become like big. I want it to blow the fuck up because it deserves it. It's so good. And I think the roleplay exemplifies that, right? Because a lot of people have all these creative ideas, and we've got all these stories we're structuring. Anyway, I'm going on and on. I'm so sorry. JT also asks, what was the original idea that spawned Aetheral Space?
It's very much sort of like there's a bit of One Piece in that original idea. There's a bit of Star Wars, and there's a lot of Hunter x Hunter. I wanted like a bit of an anime-esque Star Wars, almost.
No, I'll tell you this, too. If I haven't, jerked you off hard enough yet. I'm not the biggest fan of Star Wars. I didn't really watch it till high school. I don't think it's terrible or anything. I'm just like, whatever. But, like, I think Aetheral Space is way cooler than Star Wars. Like, the way people nerd out in Star Wars about extended universe shit I couldn't care less about, like Thrawn, is the way I nerd out about fucking Aetheral Space characters in real life to people who have no clue what I'm talking about. Like, just going off. It's insane. Uzazi is my Thrawn. Who? Thrawn?
Yeah.
He just comes
so
in.
It looks like you need my help at Troy Uzazi.
Do you want to do one more quick question, or do you want to cap it there?
I want to cap it there, I think, because I've got food. I'm hungry.
No worries. We got some for the next chapter we'll have saved. Otherwise, for now, you guys take care and have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.